morning, everyone, and it's always a pleasure to be here at this fabulous BW event organized by our dear friend Bhuvnesh. The words diversity and inclusion are buzzwords and are literally buzzing everywhere, be it in politics, education, sports, organizations, or films. Even the stereotypical Barbie has broken from the shackles of conformity. There's a Barbie surgeon, there are Barbie astronauts. So basically what I'm trying to say is that institutions and organizations are really mainstreaming D&I into their culture. So it has moved from conversations to mainstreaming, which is a great sign. However, is the hospitality industry doing enough? Because when you look at the data, which is very limited, by the way, because not many people report it, the numbers are low. So from what we know, it's anything between 16 to 20% as an average as far as women is concerned. And when you look at LGBTQI and people with disabilities, the numbers are abysmally low. However, today, we want to know from the industry, what do we need to do to move the needle? And we have with us, with the women power of the sector, to talk to us about some of the best practices and initiatives that they are taking in their respective organizations. They're actually represented by the best international and Indian hotel brands, so you'll get both a global perspective and an Indian perspective. So I'm going to start with Pratima from Accor. Can you tell us, you seem to have a very high representation globally as far as women goes, and especially with your ambitious goals of having 45% women in your steering committee as far as your leadership team. Does that story translate to India? Because it's a very different story when it comes to India women in leadership. It's really low. I don't think we have more than a couple of women CEOs in the industry, and some of them are really from family-owned businesses. Leaving that aside, even senior representation is lower. So can you tell us what Accor is doing to sort of make that more participative?
Morning, everybody. It's absolutely wonderful to be here with this set of lovely ladies. We're talking about diversity. I think we are women. A men presence wouldn't have hurt for sure, to add to the diversity.
For sure.
So, because whatever we want to achieve, we have to do it together. It's not only a, sort of a women-led initiative. I think in our organizations, everybody plays an important role. And so that balance is required, absolutely. In terms of what we are doing at Accor, for us, inclusivity and diversity is irrespective of gender, age, religion, socioeconomic, your status, and irrespective of where you're coming from. And that's why we call our employees heartists, because we believe that when you come to work with all your heart, and that is all that matters. So we believe, we also inculcate that when you come to work with us, there shouldn't be any fear of a bias or a cultural or any sort of indifference that you may go through. And that is across all genders, all levels, anybody who's working with us. Coming to now, women leadership and the participation, Rakhee, that you mentioned. Yes, globally at Accor, we have some lofty goals, and we are in place for that one. We are at about 45% global workforce for us as women. And for our headquarter level, we are talking about 50% women ExCom leaders. I think that they are pretty much on track with that one. Coming to India, we have about 18% of our workforce right now as women workforce. Our endeavor is to take it to 20% by the end of this year, and we are way on track with that one. And with women, we've all spoken about, Mr. Kiswani spoke about, Mr. Pakai spoke about how we want to bring in diversity and inclusion into attracting that talent with us. I think flexibility and understanding what a woman leader or a woman artist would need goes a long way into retaining them or getting them to stay and work long term with us. I think if I could take my teams, for instance, I have a 40% women team, and I'm absolutely tuned with sometimes somebody calling up and saying, hey, my help hasn't turned up today. I need to take care of my child. And that's very important for everybody to understand that a woman not only is working, but is playing different roles at home, in workplace, in our society. So we need to align ourselves to that one and be more acceptive to that one. We can always say, hey, this meeting needs to be done. All thanks to the virtual world that we live in, I think it has become far better to be participative in any calls or any forums that you need to be a part of. Also, we are now at a hybrid work model. We started that at the beginning of this year, and that's right now at the corporate level, but we are looking at opportunities, and anybody who comes to us with a request saying, oh, I have a particular person or a lady who needs some flexibility because she's a young mother or she's just getting started or somebody is pursuing studies along with that one, along with working. So we are flexible in terms of what shifts are they doing, can we be more aligned to what that person needs. And that's some of the initiatives that we are working with at Accor within the organization, across hotels or across in corporate office, both ways.
Thanks, Pratima. Reema, you're doing a lot in the space of belonging. I think you're the only one who says diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging on your website out there. As a communications professional, how do you socialize this within the organization and outside? Also touch upon what you do in the social impact space, because you have the Hilton Foundation that works very hard.
Yes.
I know it falls into ESG and CSR, but there is an overlap. What you do with marginalized communities, etc., is also inclusion. So tell us a little bit about those initiatives and about how communication sort of socializes it.
Thanks, Rakhee, and lovely to be back over here at this panel. So there are three parts to your question. I'm going to touch upon all one by one. First is diversity initiatives at Hilton. Secondly, how communications mainstreams and humanizes the entire diversity agenda, which is extremely important, otherwise it's just a textbook blueprint. And thirdly, Hilton Foundation and its overall overarching impact. So 55, I'm going to start with how diversity underpins a lot of things, a lot of values at Hilton. It is the core of what we really do. In fact, around 55% of leadership positions across our APAC teams are held by women across 6 nationalities. Hilton has signed a gender parity pledge in which by 2027 we hope to have equal representation of men and women in global leadership positions as well as board of directors. This kind of demonstrates the importance and the commitment that the company has towards advancing gender diversity, but also spotlights the transformative role that communication plays in bringing these things to life, in making the whole diversity agenda more breathable, more talkable, more livable, more tangible. And how do we do that? How do we do that in general? Is first fostering a culture of inclusion, putting a lot of storytelling efforts. Like I said, you have to humanize it, otherwise it's just a leaf out of a manifesto. So you humanize it. Also bringing a lot of transparency and trust to the whole thing. Now, when you are going out and making pledges, we align stakeholders, we align employees, internal and external, as well as the public. So when we do that in communication, you're also holding the brand accountable to make it more measurable, to make it more definitive. Now, across the board, we have a lot of initiatives for diversity and inclusion. For example, the Women Team Member Resource Group, which is an internal initiative, but it's a unique storytelling platform where you're pairing senior executives, senior women with team members across the group to come on board and share their successes, their challenges, a part of their journey, have exchange of information and ideas. Besides that, Hilton globally participates very proactively in a conference called the Makers Conference, which has women leaders across all the sectors come on board and share their journey with each other. And besides these two big ticket initiatives, we've got others like there are mentoring programs for women leaders and team members called the Executive Development Programs, when we are pairing women senior group with team members across the board, again, for an idea exchange. So, these kind of elements really go a long way in bringing the entire diversity fundamental to life. And as communication professionals, what we do is to contribute to build a momentum. We build a lot of momentum so that the culture and the fabric of diversity gets walked on, gets breathed, and it is always better to live a story than just hear a story. So that's about diversity. Secondly, regarding the Hilton Foundation, like you mentioned, now the Hilton Foundation was formed by Mr. Conrad N. Hilton, who is the founder of Hilton Hotels. The main purpose of the Hilton Foundation was to create a positive environmental and social impact, which means through 3 pillars, which basically becomes the reasoning of our lending grant and support to either community members, team members, or non-profit organizations. And the 3 pillars of support groups are career development, environmental sustainability, and resilience. So which means that Hilton Foundation is going to provide grants to disaster-strife and disaster-stricken and relief associations. We also work with non-profit associations across the world when it comes to team members who want to give their time, give their effort in making lives of people who are living below the poverty line or are the disadvantaged section of the society. But a lot of time is given to that. And thirdly, for career development. So we award grants to individuals and organizations who are working to progress careers to people who obviously cannot afford it.
Great, thank you. That was helpful. Shweta, moving to you. The Leela group actually has been practicing diversity in a very different way. You all have applied it in your celebrating the cultural heritage of this country through the properties that you have. And it's also reflected in your design and in your service philosophy. Tell us a little about your unique approach to D&I. Also, do you have goals and an agenda that is set?
Good morning, everybody. And Rakhee, thanks for having all of us together in this panel. As you rightly said, at the Leela, I think everything when it comes to putting the walk into the talk on diversity is, the approach is about inclusion of diversity in everything that we do. So at 3 levels it is manifested. First of all, with our own associates, with our own teams internally. So 37% plus of our senior management professionals are women, which is one of the highest in the hospitality industry in India. And it does not stop just with that. How are we enabling, how are we creating more and more inclusion of diversity? So I come from a non-hospitality background, and we have a very interesting mix of deep seasoned hoteliers, very experienced talent within the hospitality and the hotel world, merging with some of us who are bringing this fusion of outside in. Our head of HR has come from the CPG world. We have many tech entrepreneurs who've joined our teams across functions. So that's how Leela kind of is starting a lot of future back approaches on mixing talent and also functional thought leadership into our own associates. And there is continuous work that happens either in the form of Leela Leadership Development Program, and we keep improvising on how the new dimension of diversity beyond just gender, along with a very, very deep focus on gender, comes into our associates, into our own teams. The second level of work we do is with the extended communities that we operate in. Like you rightly said, it's not just about our own partners, which are also amazingly diverse. So at one end, we would work with Kailash Satyarthi Foundation, and we are enabling 4,000 Bal Grams as they've been identified. On the other end, we are working with Smriti Mandhana as an icon of India, which she represents a very different aspect of India's sportsmanship and wellness. So we've just partnered with her on redefining Ojasya, which then ends up translating into various aspects of inclusivity coming into and celebrating the cultural nuances that India as our provenance or our origin kind of defines. And also, if I extend that to simple things like, all the cloth bags in Leela are made by Mahila Gram women who are stitching up those clothes for them, or Fool, which is our partnership where we upcycle the flowers that are used in the Leela Palace hotels and then take them to a community of women who get employed by that, and then they come back to our hotels as guest experiences. So I think the fact that it is not the common definition of what a number looks like on your objectives. I think every function in Leela is kind of very embedded on inclusion of diversity, gender, communities. And last but not the least, I think our guest experiences are then immensely connected to what we are doing within the teams, with the communities. I think we are the first ones to take a lead on multi-generational leisure destination programming. So that's also inclusivity of a kind, because otherwise most of the hotels or luxury hotel references is very, 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 very simply focused on a very micro kind of a target audience, but we are realizing that even as communities, as society, we are a new dimension of diverse kind of ways of engaging with hotels is emerging, and we are playing that into our programming as well. So it's actually at multiple levels where Leela is kind of pioneering what diversity means in today's context.
Thank you. No, I think it's important to, like I said, mainstream this into operations and customer experiences, because today's customer is also demanding that. So it's very interesting. Coming to Neemrana, which is similar yet differentiated, I think you've carved a niche in travel out of architectural treasures that you have, and the fact that you have pioneered a completely new genre of business when it comes to heritage and experiential heritage tourism. I love your concept of India meets Bharat, where you integrate locals and the local community in far-flung areas and rural areas so beautifully. And sort of have made a completely new segment out of the business. Can you tell us a little bit about the great work you're doing in these rural areas, especially when it comes to empowerment and social impact?
Thank you. I think the most important thing is to highlight that Neemrana has actually pioneered in diversity in historical architecture. So we have buildings which have a Sultanate Rajput influence. We have buildings which have colonial influence. And we've maintained them in exactly the same way that they were. Local communities and integrating them into the Neemrana concept of hospitality has always been our focus for the last 31 years. And this is actually slightly harder than what it appears, because these are all people who are now, they've been trained over a period of time to run their local heritage with pride. But explaining them, I mean, this is before I go into gender diversity, explaining them the relevance of why they should be using a particular chemical in housekeeping is extremely challenging, because when you go to their actual homes, you'll say they don't even have a mesh in their windows, they don't even have an actual concept of security. But nevertheless, over the last several years, we have worked with local communities, integrated them into junior positions, senior positions. We have people who've grown with us over the years. We work a lot with people, and especially women in the rural areas in which we operate, and this is done through interactions in Anganwadi centers, which our CSR team does regularly, and this has been done for the last 30 years. We also, have various tie-ups of collaboration where, in fact, this year we're launching the Kala Sakhi and Neemrana collaboration, where women in the Neemrana village have actually created sustainable gifts for weddings. And this is going to be showcased and on a very large platform. Having said that, I think there's also a very important factor to remember that, our rural areas are actually the areas that represent true India and real India. And we are here trying to bridge the gap. We've been doing that religiously. I think when I joined the company in 2010, there were really a few women. I can probably count them on my fingers. And we're far from where we want to be, but we've still at least been able to achieve a 10% women representation both at the unit level and at the corporate level. It's much higher. We're nearly there at a 40%. And it's a young company, it's a growing company, but I think these are very significant endeavors that we have, attempted at, and we have a long way to go. But yes, this is a little bit about the Neemrana concept.
No, it's fantastic. The way you've sort of included community so beautifully and integrated it into your experiences. My next question is actually common to all of you, and it's something that's really topical today, and it's about workplace well-being. It actually falls in the space of inclusion, especially in light of what happened, the incident that got global attention about a young employee from E&Y. Today's generation, millennials and Gen Z, are demanding work-life balance. They are demanding a better quality of life. And I'm really keen to know, and millennials don't think that long hours is equated with hard work, which is a traditional mindset. I'm keen to know from my colleagues here on the panel, what are they doing to adapt to this change when it comes to a new generation of employees and their expectations at workplace? So let's start with Pratima. What are you all doing in terms of policy? Any policy changes which are probably global best practices that you'll include in India?
All the Gen Zs and millennials, they want instant gratification. I think all of us know they are really sometimes impatient as to what's happening. They want career growth. They want everything as of now. And we have learned, or we are learning to deal with them. I think the best gratification for Gen Zs and millennials is remuneration pay. And as an organization, we are paying overtime. So if they are working late, they get paid. So this is a big change.
It's a choice they make.
Yes. So this is a big change that we brought in. It's I know it's been spoken on the last few years across the country, but this is already implemented in our hotels. So this ensures that if somebody is working, they get paid for that one, and they get compensated for that one. And also at the same time, the managers or the teams are ensuring that their folks leave in time. Their artists are going home in time, and they are spending that time. And also, all our hotels now have a mental well-being helplines which have been set up, which is a great initiative. I think in today's time and age, a lot propelled by social media, when everything is readily, sort of acceptable or unacceptable, the influence is very strong. And they sometimes do not know if they can talk to someone or not. So those helplines is a very big initiative that we have taken. And in terms of our millennials and the younger lot of artists who are joining us, I think it's very important that there is mentorship for them. They need to see which direction their careers are going to go into. They want to understand what is 5 years down the line versus when we started, I think 5 years, or it was a different way we dealt with our careers. So there's, for example, in our training programs, whenever we do any learning and development program, it's a mandate that 50% of the participation has to be women. So that helps to ensure not only that there is participation, but also grow the talent for future.
Right.
So these are some of the changes that we have implemented and really helping us strengthen that diversity, inclusion culture that we have.
That's good to know. Shweta, you moved from a very male-dominated sector. She moved from Diageo, spirits company, to hospitality. Today, this kind of links back to what Mr. Kachru and Mr. Bakayo were saying about the whole talent crisis and the industry not being perceived as attractive enough also. But you moved to a hospitality sector. What do you think the change has been, and what made you move to this sector? And
great question, Rakhee.
Yeah.
And just before I go to what I think is very portable from what my experience in the spirits was, which was, according to me, a very male-dominated sector, especially in India. And I was fortunate enough to play a role in transitioning that to a very, very well-represented from leadership, women, and other aspects over there. And that's the learning that I think is very relevant to hospitality today. It's a supremely high growth opportunity. What the larger ecosystem around hotels and hospitality hospitality brings to us. But with that comes a responsibility for the leaders who are entrenched into the sector to kind of adapt a cultural intelligence that's almost like gets evolved over a period of time. So it's not just, we were discussing just now, as you were saying, that it's not just about millennials and Gen Zs as our teams and our associates. It's very reflective on our end consumer also. Sure. The end guests are also reflective of what our workforce is and what I see hospitality as the cultural cauldron of any country like India, which is going to harness more and more focus and more and more of the world spotlight onto it. So I think for the industry to get into a sensitizing of more cultural nuances of both our people we are wanting to attract to come into this sector. And how can that be done? That can be done best by representation. Some of us, who are talking about it here, some of us who are more and more vocal. We spoke about mentorship. We also spoke about coming together as leaders of hospitality and kind of talking about it, that how rich it is and how kind of passionate it has been for many of you who've brought the sector at the stage that it is today, and the kind of growth that is likely to get over there. So I think a lot of representation and a lot of learning from other sectors who seem to have done it is
great. I hope you can inspire many others. Sonavi, you've also moved back. You're a Rhodes Scholar who chose to work in India and chose hospitality. Do you want to tell us why you made that change? You seem like a millennial to me, so I think the response would be very useful.
Well, I'm a nationalist at heart, and I think I wanted to contribute to the growth and development of my own country. And I think hospitality was something I didn't study hospitality, but I was blessed with a mentor who's here today, Mr. Ajay Bakaya, who taught me everything about hospitality. And I think that's something which makes a huge difference, because like we've been talking about mentorship, so I think I would be an example of that. Having said that, I think hospitality and the Neemrana concept is something which we want to take it to a very, very different level. And we're a small company, and we're very, very deeply integrated with the communities. We do so many things in terms of educational allowance. We also have interest-free loans. When there's a medical emergency, it could be anywhere in India. Mr. Amarnath and I are both actually involved. We'll actually speak to the person, the family is a doctor. So that's the way in which I think that's the kind of impact that I want to be able to make. Profitability has its own place, but I think showcasing India's rich culture and being able to create economic opportunities for people in the nearby rural areas is something which is really what my heart beats for.
Reema, tell us what Hilton is doing in terms of adaptation. Are there new workplace policies that you'll have introduced to adapt to this new generation and this new mindset more than the generation?
I think, Rakhee, Hilton was a little ahead of its time, much before the trigger-happy generation started putting their, starting sharing their outburst on social media. For Hilton, the well-being and inclusion for their employees has always been paramount. If there's one thing which is more important than building hotels, it's taking care of the employees at Hilton. And we've got various programs, industry-level programs, internal programs, which form the genesis of that particular culture. And at Hilton, the founding philosophy has always been the fact that if an employee feels taken care of personally and professionally, that is when they are capable of getting their best version to work. This has led to programs like Thrive at Hilton, which is the cornerstone of a lot of benefits, career development opportunities, flexible ecosystem offerings that Hilton provides. In fact, one of an examples that I would really like to share over here, there was a woman guest relation associate working at Conrad in Philippines, whose son developed a hearing disability in the first or the second year. She wanted to take a sabbatical to learn sign language so that she would be able to interact with her son. Not only, and I'm proud to say that, not only did Hilton, of course, sponsor the entire program for her, when she came back, all very, very underconfident whether she'll be able to take on the workload because this was pre and post-COVID, Hilton also gave her a promotion. So, Thrive at Hilton, it's okay. There was a program that Hilton launched 3 years back, I think immediately after COVID, when the whole talk about flexible working systems, flexible ecosystems became very important. Hilton launched It's Okay working system, which means it's okay to leave early if you have a personal commitment. It's okay not to come for a meeting because your pet is unwell, and I have lived that. I've actually not come for a morning meeting and told my managers that, my pet is unwell, which was absolutely fine. Because unless and until I feel whole at work and I'm not living under any fear, I'll be able to do the best for the company, the organization, and the world, right? So that's what we believe in. That's the philosophy. Excellent. Hospitable outside and hospitable inside.
Great. That's a great philosophy to live by. I don't know if we have time, Siddharth? 5 minutes? Okay, then we'll have to close. I do have a video to show. So to conclude, the industry has a clear charter. There are initiatives that are being rolled out. And who says that D&I today should be understood from a limited lens of just gender, sexuality, or ability? India has traditionally been an amalgamation of cultures, people, languages, cuisine, art forms, festivals. That's diversity. We just have to work on building on this and mirror the representation of the population of the country and do the best we can, and I'm sure we can be a global force for good. I have a very short video to show you, which I think drives home the point. Many of you would have seen it, but I just thought it was apt for today. If we can have that. Ladies and gentlemen, that was a message from the sporting world, and I'm sure that the hospitality industry united can equally be unstoppable. We just need a renewed commitment from leaders like Mr. Bakaya, Mr. Kachru, and many others here today, Viru, Farat, to spread the message. And I think it needs a little bit of creative thinking to really move the needle. So thank you very much, and I hope united we can make a difference. Thank you, Pratima, Reema, Sonavi, Shweta, thank you so much for your time.